Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video I'll show you how I painted this criminal wearing a mask of Donald Trump. Here's the model all primed, ready to paint, and this is part of the collection I went through in a previous video. You might have seen it. Here's the thumbnail for that one, and these are a selection of miniatures from Anvil Industry. Massive thanks to them for sending out these models and sponsoring today's video. Here you can see some of the other ones. I picked out some of my favourite masked criminals that I'll be painting up and using in a bank heist scenario for Weekend Warriors later on. I'll tell you a bit more about their Kickstarter so you can pick up some of these models or the STL files later on in the video, but let's get cracking on and we'll get this Donald Trump model painted up. First up, I used some earth texture acrylic and I used this to base the models. Then I coated them all in some base Mechanicus standard grey. I gave them 2 coats, watered down, and then when that dried, I dry brushed it heavily with my favourite white paint, 2 thin coats, White Star. When it was completely dry, I started with Layer Cadian Flesh Tone. I water this down, about 1 part paint to 1 part water in my wet palette. And I'm just going to pick out his hands, give them a nice coat, making sure to move that model around. So I've got lots of control. I know exactly where I'm going to go with my brush strokes, and then I can really get into those hard to reach areas. And then like the neck here, that's quite tricky, so I make sure the brush has got a nice point to it. And again, just move the model, make it as easy as I can so I can rest my arms on the table, have loads of control, I'm not shaking too much. And as I'm painting Donald Trump, I'll batch paint all 4 of these models, but I will only do the Trump model in this video so you can see the process I use for him, I use on all of these models. And what I try and do is just show some different techniques as I'm trying to explore and try new things, and hopefully that's going to give you some ideas and inspiration for your models. Next up is that 2 thin coats White Star paint again, and I water this down, 1 part paint to 1 part water again, and I'm going to paint in his shirt. So I'm going for a proper Donald Trump costume. Don't forget, this isn't Donald Trump, this is a criminal just wearing his mask. I'm thinking I'm just going to call him Ronald Dump for my game. I think that'd be a good criminal name. Now on to some contrast Gryph-hound orange. Guess where this is going? Of course, it's going on that face there, so the mask is getting a good orange coat. So we're going to make that a nice bright orange, and I want to try and make this look like a mask and not like an actual face. So I'm going to choose the contrast and then do a little bit of dry brushing later on and leave it at that. Keep it really simple, but I will be painting the eyes, which is super fiddly, but I'll show you some easy ways of doing that later on that I find really help and make it not so intimidating. Using the brush to get those pupils in there can often be quite tricky, so I'll show you a little hack later on. There we go, Ronald Dump is taking shape now. That's a proper orange face, just what he needed. Now onto some contrast Militarum green, and you can see here as I turn the bottle that a lot of the white pigment there at the bottom needs to be shaken up. So I really shake that paint. I use a paint shaker, but then I got a bit carried away and forgot I was filming, so I painted the duffel bag there off camera. But you can see I've just given it 1 nice coat of that Militarum green. I haven't put too much paint on there, I haven't flooded it, just enough to get in the recesses. Now onto some contrast Nasdreg yellow, and this is going to be great for Ronald Dump's hair. We want that to be really yellow underneath, and we'll dry brush it later on to make it a little bit lighter on the top. But this is great. This is going to give us some nice dark recesses, but really sell the idea that this is some proper blonde hair. Next up is some contrast Black Templar, and this is going to be used to go on the hair of the actual criminal. So you can see where the mask ends, and I decided to go with black so it really is a contrast against that blonde hair, and then that would sell the idea better that he really is wearing a mask. And while I've got that paint out, I'll look around the model for other areas I want to paint black, like the shoes. Contrast Snakebite Leather is next. Really great paint. I love this contrast paint. This is going to be used for the wood of the sawn-off shotgun there. Again, I'm moving that model around, making it really easy, so I try and keep my brush strokes in the same direction as much as I can. Sometimes I'll like move a little bit, but as often as I can, I'll change the angle of the model, and you can see for the straps here, I'm constantly moving it and spinning it round. Next on to some shade. This is Soul Blight Grey. This is very subtle, but good for things like white shirts and white cloth, so I'll put a coat of that on there, and that's going to go into the recesses of the shirt, but it's not going to be too dark. Then some contrast Plague Bearer Flesh, and this one will go on the straps of the duffel bag. I just wanted 2 different tones of green there, and then I'm just going to give it a coat all over just to work in the recesses a bit more and just change that colour a little bit. And then look what I did. I spilt it all over the desk. And if you ever do this, it's handy to have some of these little pipettes that can help get it back up and get it back in your bottle. Still going to waste a lot, but at least you can recover some of it. Okay, let's keep painting. Let's get some Macragge blue. This is a base paint now. Again, 1 part paint to water in my wet palette. And I'm just going to block in now all the trousers, the jacket, so the whole suit gets this one solid coat. And then I'll do that another time if it's needed. But I found I only needed to do 1 coat with this. And there you can see that's covered it pretty well. And I'm going to do some different layers now. Using that same Macragge blue, I'm going to add in a little bit of white to it. But before I do that, I'm going to just paint in these cuffs. I forgot about those. So while I've got some white paint out, I'm just going to do that first. And that shade we put on the shirt is completely dry now. So I'm just going to pick out and highlight some of the different ruffles and the collars and the folds of the shirt. I think it's time to do those eyes. So you can see I've got a really nice point to my brush, and that's just from rolling it through the paint and pulling it through and then getting myself in a really good position so nothing is moving, and then I've got complete control. And you can see I just put that little dot in there and that's come out quite nice actually. I'm really happy with that. The pupils later on, but now let's get some contrast basilicanum grey, and I'm going to use this to go over the metal parts of this shotgun. One nice even coat, working it into the recesses there. Let's go with some Mephiston red now, base paint, and this will be for the tie. Again, I've watered it down, 1 part paint to water, and I'm going to take my time, nice point on the bristle. And you can see I've got quite a decent sized brush here, and the one I'm using is the Army Painter War Gamer Regiment brush, and I found this is a really good one. I'm getting on with this quite well at the moment and using it a lot. Now some shades, so some Reichland Flesh Shade, just go over the hands. I'm not going to put this on the mask, but I am going to put it on the hands there and also on the neck part that we painted earlier. Then some Tyrant Skull. This is a dry paint, and if you haven't seen these before, it's a really cool texture. It's almost a bit spongy, and so this is really great for doing some dry brushing. So I'll get this Army Painter dry brush, work it into my bristles on a piece of card, get as much paint as I can off there, and then I'm ready to go. And I'm going to be using this for Ronald Dump's hair, and so I'm just trying to go along all the different texture of that hair, and then that's going to give a really nice highlight. You're still going to get the richness coming through underneath from that yellow we put on earlier, but this is really going to make it a lot blonder. And then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put some of this on the face and keep it really simple for the mask, and I was happy with that result. I think that's enough, and it just sells the idea that it's not necessarily a face, but it really is a face mask. I thought I'd get another dry paint out, this time Nurgling Green, same spongy texture. I thought I'd add this to the bag. That contrast paint is now completely dry, the 2 coats we put on. I'm just going to go all over it now with this, and that'll just bring out some of those raised areas. I'll do some more highlighting later on, but really, this is all you need to do. You could just stick with contrast, you could just do this and then that's another stage, or go 1 stage further again, as I will do later on. Now let's grab some Leia Kislev Flesh, and this is going to be used for some highlights on the hands. I'm not going too crazy with the skin tones on this, as it's only the hands and you only see a little bit. As long as they're highlighted, that's certainly going to be plenty. Let's lighten up that tie a bit with some Leia Evil Sun Scarlet and just give that a little coat, not all over. I'm just picking out the edges of this and the areas that would get more of a light hitting it. And then once that was completely dry, I took some Leia Troll Slayer Orange, and then I'm just going to do some little dots and some little lines just on the very edges, and this will be the main highlight. And it's really great going from red to an orangey red to an orange. I think that works really well. Let's grab some base Mechanicus Standard Grey now, and I'm going to use that just to give a highlight on the boots. And you could go through 2 or 3 stages with different greys if you wanted to. I'll be adding a lighter grey in a little while once this is dried, just to give it that extra highlight. And so there we go, just catching those raised areas. Then some Leia Ogrin Camo. This is going to be a green that I wanted to put on the bag, and this is good just to bring out those most raised areas, the highest highlight. And you really don't need to do this, it's not necessary, but a fun step if you want to go a little bit further. I like to just dot it along, do little lines here and there, break up any long lines like this by just stippling it a little bit, and that can add a bit of texture, a bit of interest to the model. Next there's some Leia Dawnstone, and this is a lighter grey, And this will give us the extra highlight on the boots, just little dots now. Not going to cover too much of the area I've already painted with the grey. You can see I'm just dotting it on. And then while I've got it, I thought I'm going to go over some of the areas of the shotgun as well. So looking for those higher areas, doing some lines where the light would catch it the most, and then all along the edges of the barrel. I noticed there's a little zip on the duffel bag, so let's give that a quick coat of this grey as well. Then I moved on and I grabbed that base Macragge blue again, and then with just watering that down a little bit, and then I add a bit of white, mix it together, and that just brings the colour down a little bit, and then I can start picking out all the highlights for his jacket. So I'm trying a different style here. I'm just going to go not too heavy with this, just go around the edges. And so if I watered it down a bit more, I'd probably be a bit more generous with the sections I'm covering. But I wanted to see how this would work, and I thought this model was perfect because it's got lots of creases in it and lots of textures. So you can see I'm leaving quite a lot of that first coat of Macragge blue coming through, and then just going through the edges. And this is really fun when you're painting models like this. You can try different things, experiment, react to the model and the sculpt and the quality of the print, and this is done so well. You've got all these creases, and I found it really fun just to try something new and just have a go at something that I don't normally do when I paint models. Once that dry, I went back to my palette, added some more white to that blue, and you can see I'm going down in different stages from that dark Macragge blue to a mid-tone to then a highlight, and I'm just going to go around, and now I'm just dotting and putting little lines here and there on the areas that are going to catch most of the light. So looking for corners, looking for edges, and again breaking up those lines just to make it interesting to look at. I thought it'd be cool to add some Stormhost Silver, the layer paint, and dry brush it on the shotgun just ever so gently there, not putting too much on at all, just to sell the idea that it is metal a little bit more. And then while I was at it, I got some base Runelord brush. I got a smaller brush now, and then I'm going to paint in the buckle on the belt. Then I took some contrast Basilicanum Grey, and this is going to be great for painting the base. So all that we put on earlier with the Vallejo paste and then the dry brush, this contrast is really going to work into all the recesses and bring out the texture there. While that's drying, I took a Micron 005 Pigma pen, and this is going to be for the pupil. And there's nothing wrong with doing this. It's not cheating at all. If something works and you find it easier, you can do anything you like with your models. And so I use this for pupils all the time now, and I find it really helps. Now this area where I painted the white earlier is quite small. I found even with this tiny pen, it wasn't quite getting in there. So I put him down on the table, and then I could really push that pen in and get the pupils in place. And I'm trying to aim it almost close to his nose. So there you can see I've done both of them, and that pen really helps. There's no way I could do that with a brush. I'm just not skilled enough. And it's permanent pen, it's going to last, so I definitely recommend it. Alright, here's a neat trick. Let's grab a coffee stirrer. I'm going to snip off the end just to square it. I don't have to do this, but I find it helps me line it up with what I'm going to do in a moment. So first up, I'm going to get some white paint, and I'm going to paint it along the edge of this coffee stirrer, on the thin edge. And then what I'm going to do is use that to make a really nice line on the base, and that's going to sell the idea that they're on part of a road. And I don't want it to be a perfect line, and so doing it like this, it's not going to go all the way down. So I just push that on there, and there you can see it looks like the paint's worn off on a line on the road. And that's something I've done with Blood Bowl on grass, and it works really well. Okay, the final paint is some base Abaddon Black, and I'm going to put 2 coats of this on the rim of the base. And so I do 1 coat, let it dry thoroughly, do the next coat, and then we're all done. And here he is, Ronald Dump, the masked criminal, using the Donald Trump mask to disguise himself as he runs off with the loot from the heist. I really had fun painting this model, trying out different things, mixing up techniques, just enjoying myself and just going with it, using the model to kind of give me ideas about ways to paint it. And here are the other ones that I've painted up. I picked out my favourite ones. Got to have a crow head on there, 100%. And I went mostly contrast there. And the good thing with using contrast is you can go back and start added layers later on, but at least it gets you ready for the table. You can see with the Joker here, I haven't done the extra layers on his jacket, but it's great to play with. He's ready to go now. So I've got my 4 criminals, they're ready for the heist. The bank's waiting, so come back soon and we all see this in action as I play out the heist with my Weekend Warriors scenario. And you'll be able to have a go at the heist too. So if you go over to the Kickstarter, I'll put a link down below. You can find out more about the models and the STL files. And if you'd like to see what the models look like when they're assembled and all the different components you can get, then check out this video, which I'll link to at the end of this video that you're watching now. And in that video, I go through all the components so you can see the different things like the safe. This is really awesome. This is going to be a little objective marker, and I go through all the different weapons and everything, different heads, body parts, and then you can see here all the models that I built in that video. So you have a really good look at what's included. And that link down below that takes you to the Anvil Industry Kickstarter is going to give you some great painted models there. So good examples of what they look like. You can see some of the other parts, like this big safe here, which looks brilliant. You've got all the SWAT team and everything, which I also built, so you'll see those built up. But this tells you exactly what's included, all the different pledges you can make, and then all the bonuses and add-ons too. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed painting this up. It was great fun, and these models are going to be awesome to play in lots of miniature agnostic games, and I hope you're going to have a look at the Kickstarter and show this great company some support. I've done a bunch of videos with them in the past, and it's awesome to see what they'll come up with next. So great fun, and there's loads on their website too. But thanks so much for watching. I'd love to know what you think about these models. Let me know in the comments down below. If you liked the video, it'd be great if you hit the like button, subscribe for more videos like this one, and I look forward to seeing you here next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games. Thank you so much to my Patreon supporters for helping me to keep going with these regular videos. I couldn't do this without you, and I appreciate your support so much. If you'd like to join the Patreon community, support the channel, get some great perks at the same time, there's a link down below in the description. It'll be awesome to see you there.